Hi, and welcome to another episode of BYU MBA Horizons. People often equate influence with a specific title in a company. The bigger the title, the bigger the influence, right? Well, our next guest learned that even frontline factory employees can have a huge impact on the way work gets done. Emily Tanner joins us today on this episode of BYU MBA Horizons. Emily Tanner, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
You're welcome.
You graduated from the MBA program back in 2010.
Yes.
And what was your area of emphasis within the MBA program?
I did the OBHR track at BYU.
Okay. So everyone kind of has a backstory in terms of what brought them to the program. Mm-hmm. What did you do before coming back to the program, and how did you decide to make the change and go back to school?
So before the program, I was working in Silicon Valley. I was working at a small tech company in Silicon Valley. It was actually half a block from Apple. So I used to have all my lunches with my Apple friends, one Infinity Loop. And I was working in their contracts management. So I was working in the finance side of it, revenue recognition, finance. And I'd done that because it also gave me a lot of legal exposure. I was trying to decide, it was a business, I was trying to decide if I wanted to go to law school, business school, teach potentially, really what I wanted to do. And what I learned from that is I was very much more passionate about the business side. So I worked with the board of directors, and I really liked the decisions that were made on the business side. I wasn't as passionate sort of about the legal, learning as much about the legal. I won't say anything about the law profession, but the legal, I was much more passionate about sort of the finances and how that drove decisions, and how motivating and retaining the employees as well. I had a lot of exposure to a lot of different things because it was such a small company. I knew I always wanted to get a master's. I wasn't sure which. I decided to get my MBA. And I only had time that year to apply to BYU because I made my decision a little late. I said, well, I'll take the GMAT and I'll see what BYU is about, but I'm never going to go to BYU because I went BYU undergrad and I'm going to go somewhere else. And I came and interviewed here and I said, I'm going to go into the finance track because that's what I was doing. And I came and interviewed here, and I learned that there was this thing called OBHR, and I had a great experience interviewing and going to some of the classes and got in. So I sort of had a decision, do I want to go this year or wait another year and see sort of other options as well, and I decided to come that year and do OBHR after the first week.
So you made a switch from a finance emphasis just kind of a week into the program, and then made the switch over to HR. Mm-hmm. So that first semester in the program is one that a lot of students remember as being very rigorous, lots of adaptation that has to take place during that time. How was that experience for you? Was it a smooth transition, or were there some bumps along the way?
It was, I don't think I would use the word smooth. I think it's pretty intense. So I think it was definitely, I relied a lot on my team. I thought they were a huge part of my experience and the support I received during that time. HR interviews a lot sooner before the other tracks. So we sort of said, we're going to be very busy with HR interviewing. I promise, I will do everything I can to be engaged academically, and I will support you when you're interviewing. And we had to have that discussion up front. But they were wonderful and supportive. But it was from day before, right? The before day one, you are learning about the companies, networking, going on the rafting trip, going to interviews, and it's pretty much the first 2 months are intense, I would say.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the rafting trip. That's been mentioned on the program before, but we've never actually explained what the rafting trip is. So students are actually climbing into rafts. How does that help you be more successful in the business program?
All the HR track, OBHR track, goes on a rafting trip. And what's really neat is recruiters also go on the rafting trip. So it's a great opportunity to, in a more casual environment, learn about the companies, about HR work, how the two interact, and get to know the other first years and some of the second year students. So it's been a tradition for, I don't know how long, but a long time for the OBHR track.
That's wonderful. So looking at your background here, you ended up at Procter & Gamble for your internship.
Yes.
And how was that?
It was wonderful. I loved my internship. I worked with the head of Olive. So Gillette was acquired by P&G about 10 years ago. At the time, it had only been 5 years. I was the first intern P&G had ever placed at Gillette. So Gillette had always had their own interns, and I was the first of any function too, finance, marketing. I was the first. So it was a great experience to see some of that, still the integration happening, and really form some of the program there that P&G now has today.
That's wonderful. You obviously had a good experience because you're now working for Procter & Gamble full-time.
Yes, yeah.
And what have your roles been since coming out of the program?
So my first role, I worked with our commercial side. So I worked with our marketing, consumer market knowledge, and design functions. So I spent that first year doing a lot of our talent management. I actually worked with all of our marketing directors to create really, Gillette had never really had to interact with Cincinnati, if you will, with P&G in talent management. So worked to sort of build some of those bridges and the systems and the processes that for marketing talent management. Then after that first year of the functional work, I went and worked in our brand franchise organization. That's how P&G is organized. It was very high end. It's the people who develop our newest products, who develop the strategies behind the brands that we have at specifically Gillette at the time. So all of those brands. And then working there, I went to the opposite end of P&G and worked in manufacturing, where I am. So I've been in manufacturing for about 2.5 years and have done everything in manufacturing.
Wow. So what types of things did Procter & Gamble do to kind of get you ready for that role in manufacturing? I would imagine it's very different from being in an office environment.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything formalized that they did. I think what's very unique about the manufacturing plant I'm in now is it is attached to the corporate offices. So I work in Boston in our Procter & Gamble offices. We have every function represented, from manufacturing to the group president of Gillette. So the plant was attached to the offices I was working in on the commercial side. So I would occasionally go down and interact with my HR peers in the manufacturing plant to say, okay, what are you doing? What kind of initiatives are you working on? What are some of the employee relations challenges are you having right now? And we would share experiences. So I think that was probably what prepared me the most for my current role in manufacturing.
So you kind of had some previews into the types of things that your peers were working on.
Mm-hmm.
And was that something that you decided would just be a good idea to kind of keep in contact with your peers, or how did those conversations come about?
Yeah, yes, and I thought it was a good idea. P&G's, we don't have a formal new hire program. For example, you're going to do this rotation, then this rotation, then this rotation. We try to more give people experiences that really highlight their strengths and also allow them to work in areas of interest. So I knew I was interested in working in the plant in Boston. So I initiated a lot of that to go down and do that because I knew that was an interest of mine.
And now that you're in a plant setting, do you ever take the time to go out onto the manufacturing floor?
Yes, that's a huge part of my work. I learned. So my first 2 weeks in the plant, I actually worked exclusively on the manufacturing line. So if you want to know how to load blades into a blade assembly machine and inspect them for quality, I can show you how to do that. And our molding presses and our assembly, our entire assembly machines for the razors. It was a great experience because you're working side by side of our technicians, and you really get a sense for the work that they do all day. It's a 12-hour shift. It's a lot of the same work, and so you have much more of a sympathy of what they're doing.
Are there any differences between the way that HR is done in a plant versus the way that HR is done in an office setting?
Yes, I would say so. I never dealt with punches being thrown on the office floor, or people, stealing razors in their lunch boxes. Or it's very different. It's also, I just used 2 negative examples. It's also, on the commercial side, people were worried about how is my cat going to come over from Geneva. So, it's just very different concerns that people have in their everyday lives versus I need my next paycheck to make sure my child has food on the table. So the concerns that people have in their lives are very different. And from, I used employee relations and sort of just daily interactions with people, but in manufacturing, we also have integrated work systems, which are not used on our commercial side, but I think will give me a great foundation for going forward and in my career on how to structure some of the businesses that I'll work on.
What have you learned from working alongside some of the frontline technicians?
I've learned a lot about influence. I think that's probably what I've learned the most of, that you don't need a specific title or role to really significantly impact an organization. And it's not just an organization, but also people's lives that you're working with on a daily basis. Some of our most basic technicians have had the greatest impact on a 600-person organization because they care about individuals and because they're insightful about the work that we're doing and because they take initiative. So it's not necessarily, the title that you have, but the person that you are and the kind of work that you do that really influences others.
That's wonderful insight. When you think about the types of projects that you've been involved in, and then maybe moving away from your current experiences with Procter & Gamble, what do you think the BYU MBA program has allowed you to do that might not otherwise have been possible?
My current role with P&G, I think, is one, and I know you say moving away, but I think connecting with people who are thinking innovatively about what I deal with on a daily basis at work. It's the people that I met in the BYU MBA program are excited and motivated to work well, and they're thinking differently about it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things I got from the program, is that I've got this, not only did I learn how to think in certain ways that will really contribute to the business, but I have a group of peers and friends and a network that I can rely on to to call on the phone and say, hey, how are you guys doing this? Or how are you thinking about this? Or what is GE or Cisco or Citi or Kellogg's, what are they doing to learn?
Is there any advice that you would share with current students to help them maximize their time while in the program?
Be as engaged as you can. I think, everyone learns in a different way. That's what we, as HR professionals, we sort of identify the strengths of people, how they learn, and then try to find the experiences that match that. I would encourage people in the program to do the same things with themselves. Identify your strengths, identify how you learn, and then create the experiences that will help you leverage both of those things so that you can make the most of your experience.
Thank you very much, and thank you for spending your time with us today, sharing your story. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.